It's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero at the back. Young Min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where tonight we have to talk about the deck Eithad being back in full force as Tottenham have thrashed City 2-0 at the weekend. And with me to do so, I'm joined by three fabulous guests. So first of all, Billy, welcome back on the pod. I feel like we've got a running theme recent weeks with you being on. How are you?
I know, very good. 2 wins, 2 weeks in a row, man. It's after last season, I'm buzzing still, absolutely buzzing.
It's good to have you on, Billy. And also we're joined by Jim from Also Spurs. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, I've had a bottle of wine and the sun's out and it's a 4-day work week ahead of me. So all I need is a Tottenham transfer to complete a perfect week. So yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Here's the hoping. I know we'll get on to transfers a little bit later because there's been a lot or lack of going on at the moment. But it's great to have you on, Jim. And also, Mitch, it's amazing to have you on the pod too. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I feel like the gaps between me coming on are getting longer and longer each time, which is my own fault. So it's really, really lovely to be back on. As Jim's already mentioned, I think the transfer stuff is frustrating everyone, but on the flip side, we have some positive performances and stuff on the pitch to talk about. So it kind of balances it out a little bit.
Defo, 100%. And we've got so much to get into tonight. So I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in, that's been watching the show recently. We've had a lot of subscribers that have actually hit the subscribe button, so I really, really appreciate it. And that's all thanks to you kind of guys, as my guests being on, and to those that are watching. So without further ado, let's crack on with things, because obviously a 2-0 win against City, Billy, is lovely. And I know we had a preview show and we spoke about it last week on Hollie's Hotspurs, how we kind of saw this one going down, and we all kind of said we'd kind of be happy with a draw. But did you see this one coming at all?
I didn't, to be honest with you. No, I thought, I thought it was going to be a 2-2 draw. I think, even though we have this weird record over City, I still think, they're one of the best teams in Europe, and it's a really, really difficult place to go. And, they look really good against Wolves in the opening week. So, no, but, absolutely delighted with how it turned out. And I actually kind of think, as we'll probably get on to in a bit, it was one of our most controlled performances ever against Man City as well. It's just, really, really, really competent performance.
Definitely. And for you, Jim, are you kind of on the same as Billy, as you didn't necessarily see it coming, although our record speaks otherwise?
I predicted a 2-1 win, so 2-0 was very nice. But no, I felt going into the season, we have a squad which came fifth 2 seasons ago, which was vastly inferior to this. And we've also got the Man City curse over those guys, and we've got the new manager bounce and a very good manager at that. That I just felt like, I feel like when Spurs' first 11 is fit, it's a top 4 11, and the squad depth's the challenge. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I always felt going to this game we had a good chance, and I think City have just made loads of signings lately. They're in a gelling period. They're in a rebuild, but a City rebuild is very different to a Tottenham rebuild. A City rebuild's like, which 5 or 6 ready now world-class players can we bring in? Whereas a Spurs rebuild looks a bit different. But I felt like we had a good shot with a fully fit squad. And I wasn't convinced we were going to play Maddison, even if he was fit for a game like this. So I was kind of going in quite confident, and we pulled it off. And yeah, I'm obviously delighted because it's 3 points the vast majority of teams won't get. So can we build on it? I hope so. But yeah, I'm very happy.
Exactly that. And I mean, how about you as well, Mitch? Because obviously 2-0, another clean sheet for Frank and Spurs. It was a great kind of outing, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much a perfect performance, I would say. I know City have this weird inferiority complex against us under Guardiola. I think we've beaten them 10 times since Guardiola took over, which only Liverpool have been able to match, which is a pretty impressive record. So I feel like we could have Ange in charge, we could have Ryan Mason in charge, we could have no one in charge, and we'd still stand a chance against City. It's really, really strange how it works. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the actual performance itself, it was pretty nailed on to what I think Frank was looking to get out of the players in every single area of the pitch. And I think it's a really, really encouraging sign, because we've now seen games against two different opponents who play completely different styles of play. Obviously, Burnley with that low block that we had to break down at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then the opposite against City, who wanted to dominate the ball and come onto us and stuff like that. And we've dealt with both challenges and passed those tests with flying colours, I would say. So from that perspective, it's really, really impressive. I'm very conscious of the fact that obviously it's a lot easier to start the season well, I think, when you're only playing one game a week before the Champions League and the Cup games have kicked in. So while I'm very much aware that the performances have been good so far, there is that concern coming up. And I feel like it's impossible not to mention the transfer stuff. I know you said we're going to come on to it, but obviously with the squad depth and what we have available to us, and you only have to have a look at what happened to Arsenal on yesterday with Saka and Odegaard both going off. All it takes is one or two of those injuries to us in key positions, and we're back where we were under Ange last year, unfortunately. So there's positives and negatives, but the performance side alone against Manchester City, really, really pleasing stuff to see.
And I think that is the thing. Like I say, we will get onto transfers. I know it is hard because obviously it is a big kind of cloud over us at the moment. But we'll obviously talk about the players that we have got, and obviously in that starting 11, Billy, I know we joked about it in terms of how we were going to try and set up against City, because like we kind of said, we don't really know what Frank is going to put out on that team sheet. So for you, Billy, were you impressed with how Frank kind of set us up against City?
Yeah, I was. I thought he would go 5 at the back. I thought it would be a similar blueprint to the PSG game, but we didn't see that. He instead decided to go man for man, which I think is really brave against Man City. Against one of the best ball playing sides in the world. The easy thing to do would be go 5 at the back and play a low block, but we didn't do that. We matched them man for man in midfield, pressed them high, and it was really brave. And ultimately, is what won us the game. Really, it was. Tactically, I thought we were outstanding against Man City, and that's. The interesting thing for me is now that's 3 competitive games and 3 different systems, all completely tactically different. And, it's a really, really promising start for Thomas Frank, but it was certainly not what I expected. I thought we'd see Danso in there, try and get some long throws, play on the counter-attack, but we matched them man for man and went for it.
I think as well for me, Jim, I obviously didn't think that we were going to play like that. I thought we were going to kind of go with that back 5, but it was that middle 3 of Sarr, Bentancur and Palinha for me, Jim, that just absolutely blew me away.
Yeah, like Palinha is just such a void that we've missed in our midfield for so long. And all the best Spurs sides I can think of have always had a midfielder who adds that. Now, we were sport with Moussa Dembele because he was a special player that only Spurs fans will ever, and Fulham fans will ever appreciate how good he is. But prior to that, you don't normally have a ball-winning midfielder who can pass the ball. You just have a brilliant ball-winning midfielder. And we had Wanyama, we had Scott Parker, we had Palacios. We had all these players that you're like, yeah, I get it. They're not a player Real Madrid are ever going to look at, but they just add this immense balance to your side. And I felt Palinha just adds that instantly to midfield. You watch Bentancur and you watch Porro and you go, the reason they have a platform to give a 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 game is because Palinha is there giving them the freedom to do it. And he just added so much. And then Sarr, a player who forced his way back into the side under one of the most difficult people to please in the world in Conte. And Mourinho said I'm sure Mourinho said he was a great player as well. Like every manager's ever been with Sarr on a training pitch has said basically along the lines of, I didn't plan to include this person, but having seen them train, I have to include this person. And it's not just that. I think he gets a disservice of being made out just to be a big runner. He's so much more than that. This guy's ability on the ball is progressing every year at a level that's unbelievable. He's only 22. He's 22 years old. That's so young to be at the level he is. And what I like about him is he's adding so much to his forward game. There's that moment where that header, he had the chance to head it in. It was a really difficult bounce, went over his head. But he's making forward runs now as well that offer a lot of threat. And I just think this guy is such an all-round midfielder that's going to be something truly special in a couple of years. Well, he's already a great midfielder, but he could be something truly special in a couple of years. And I was speaking to JJ, who's a professional coach, right? He's like an A-licensed professional coach, worked with the best. And he's like, guys, don't do this guy's a disservice. He's got a little bit of Dele Alli coming about him where he can like go forward and spot those runs. And I started to go like, I'm going to watch the game and try and look for that. When you look at it, you're like, he does. He's so much more than a runner. And I think like Billy said there, like we all expected 5 at the back. But we didn't need it because that midfield was so strong. And credit to that midfield. it was absolutely brilliant. And without Rodri starting in that midfield, we were able to boss them. And that was where the game was won. And it's not just the creativity. I feel that midfield also adds a massive thing for Van de Ven, because you don't see Van de Ven constantly scrambling, having those hamstrings on the red line. He doesn't need to, because Palinha is there cutting out those passes, cutting out those needs to make runs from 2/3 up the pitch all the way back to his own goal line and make a sliding tackle. He like that midfield, really won us that game, and delighted with them all. And then Bentancur, especially with Palinha next to him, when you go, your job isn't to tackle now, mate. Your job is to be on the ball and do all that silky, beautiful, progressive work you do. He's just a man reborn. And at the start of last window, I was like, do we sell him 1 year left in his contract? Now I'm like, we have to get this guy locked down for 4 years, because when that guy is on form in the right midfield partnerships, he's brilliant.
He really is. And I think all three of them, it was a good kind of combo, wasn't it, Mitch? I know we always talk that we want that number 10, we want that player to come in, because obviously without Maddison, without Decky, but I know it's not going to work every game, but having that kind of midfield three and see it working now is something I'm really looking forward to seeing more of.
Yeah, I mean, you can't understate how important having, well, one, chemistry in the team is, and two, having the runners. It's in part and parcel, I think, one of Pape Sarr's obviously his biggest strengths, but also Richarlison's as well. And I don't think too many people would look at someone like Richarlison and say he's like the best striker in the world, technical ability wise, or in that sense. But what he will give you is 90 minutes of absolutely hounding down defenders and chasing after the ball and battling for every single duel and everything in between. And Sarr's like that as well. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's worked so well in that number 10 role so far, is because behind Richarlison, he's that second line of pressing. And because he does that so well and it's such a key strength to his game, it's one of the reasons why we gave City so many problems. And then when you look at behind him, and after that, you've got the two of Bentancur and Palhinha. In Bentancur, you've got someone who's incredibly calm and composed on the ball, will turn away from pressing of opposition players, will pick out the right pass. And in Palhinha next to him, you've then got the battler, the tackle winner, the blocker, the interceptor. So blended all three of those together, and I think it's a very, very well-balanced midfield. And while it works, and while we talk about the lack of creativity and the lack of that technical sort of player that we're maybe missing in that number 10, there are going to be a lot of instances this season where that midfield three may actually be what we need to go with, especially if we need to do the run-in and we want to press teams high. So in that sense, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have Sarr in the 10, but you want that variation as well, I guess. Unless Sarr can continue developing, because, as we've already mentioned, he's still in his early 20s. He's got a very, very high ceiling, and who knows what he could become. But I think that's why we won the game against City. It was in that midfield battle, personally, and just winning the physical duels as well as outworking them. Again, really, really good stuff to see.
It was just a lot of workhorsing kind of in that middle, with those kind of boys doing it. But obviously it wasn't all happy because Billy, I think it was like the first 10-15 minutes, City had a few chances, obviously one being Porro kind of heading the ball back, and I think it was Mamouche kind of coming in and having that shot. At that kind of moment in time, were you concerned that City were going to be on top? Were they going to score at some point? Or were you kind of like, nah, it's fine?
There was a little bit of worry for sure. I think Mamouche had the better of Porro for about 10-15 minutes in the opening half, and he had him on toast a little bit. And then there was that one when Haaland basically ran through our entire team and put, I think, Mamouche in again, actually, and Bukayo made an amazing save. It was a couple of hairy moments, but you're always going to get that when you play Man City, that's for sure. And I think, as I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit, the second half, I was expecting a lot more of that, but it never really came. I actually thought we dominated the second half, which I was not expecting. I was expecting that the first 10-15 minutes for that to be the story of the second half, especially being 2-0 up. And sort of harking back to the PSG game when they were all over us the last 20 minutes. But it seems to me like Thomas Frank kind of learned from that PSG game, and we didn't sit back and sit deep. We kind of mid-blocked it instead of low-blocked it, and we still pressed them all over the place. So, yeah, really impressive. I think you're always going to be under a spell of attack at the Eithad, no matter who you are. So it's just normal, really. But yeah, There was a couple of hairy moments, but after that, I thought we grew into the game in confidence. And I think Porro, even after he was had a bit of a poor start, grew into the game as well. So that's all you can ask for, really.
I think that's the thing, because I think, like I say, going to the Etihad, as much as we always say it's obviously we're their bogey team, it is going to take a bit of time for us to kind of settle in. And I am impressed that we obviously did kind of ride that wave, because there's been so many times, especially last season, where we'd kind of capitulate having that much pressure on us. But obviously we kind of soaked it up. And Jim, in the 35th minute, it was that guy again, Johnson again, ole ole. What did you kind of make of obviously the goal and how we obviously soaked up that pressure and managed to get the ball in the back of their net?
Yeah, like Brennan Johnson, like I don't think you can talk about him without saying he divides opinion, because he just absolutely he does. But for me, like all I need to do to validate my own view that he's a good player is that every Spurs manager he's worked for has instantly picked him. And you've got two opposite coaches in many ways, in Frank and Ange, and both completely value this guy because his ability to put himself into goal scoring positions is elite. There's no one else in our 28-man squad who gets remotely close to that ability. Now you look at Harry Kane and you go, well, he can do that, but he can also pass and he can also press and he can also do all these other things. But that getting yourself in a position, and he's also a very good finisher as well. Like he's that was not easy finish. Richarlison actually didn't get that pass particularly in the right spot. And most players would have just seen that go into Rose Ed, but we almost took it for granted that he just planted it so well. And yeah, it's the pressure. It's the thing I loved about that performance was it was like the best of what we wanted to keep from Ange Ball and all the best of what we hoped from Thomas Frank in terms of structure just rolled into one. And we saw both. And I just thought, this is perfect. It's like they've come off the back of a foundation that teaches them from going from years of low block managers and how to play front foot football into a structured manager who goes, keep doing that. Do not stop. Forget the back five. Forget the low block counter-attacking. We're going to keep doing that, but I'm also going to add structure behind you. And we had the absolute best of both. And Johnson's, look, he's not our long-term left-wing option. There's a reason why we're in for Savinho, right? But he's such a fantastic squad player to have. And I thought he nailed his run there. And yeah, it was a great goal. And goals are the most important things in football matches. So if he does that, like the thing is with Johnson, he won't do it every week because if he did, he'd score more than Haaland. But if he does it and the second he doesn't, he'll get tons of criticism, which I think is very harsh. And I also felt like with Sarr, there's one pass he messed up and everyone was like, told you, he can't get those passes on. I remember that pass he got wrong. I'm like, Kudus ballooned 3 passes over and he's a brilliant player. They're both brilliant players, but I feel he gets a bit of unfair, but microscopics on him. And it was a great goal. And yeah, I was buzzing from it. The press was just excellent all game. It really, really was. To maintain that press over a season, you need a deep squad. And again, we'll get back to the squad later. But yeah, it was fantastic.
I think as well, obviously, Brennan's come at the goods to get that goal on the goal sheet, but as well, Richie. And I think, obviously, scoring those 2 wonderful goals the week before to then grab an assist in this game, I feel like this could potentially be a season, Mitch, if he continues to obviously stay fit, which is the biggest concern I have over Richie.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? Because I've said this to so many people now. I don't think anyone doubts Richarlison's talent as a striker and a goal scorer, and there's a reason. Ultimately, we paid 60 million quid for him. But whenever he gets on the path of looking like he's going to be half decent or go on a really good run of form, something happens. And I'm sort of sat here now, even holding my breath, thinking, okay, well, he's played 2 games already this season. He's looked really sharp. He's scored a couple goals, got an assist or 2, but when's he going to pull up with an injury that's going to keep him out for 4 or 5 weeks? Just because that's been the constant pattern over the last 2 years. And I mean, maybe it's a different story this season. Maybe the motivation is extra high. 1, because there's so many rumours linking him with a move away from Spurs. 2, because it's a World Cup year. So maybe there's that real extra grit in his sort of mindset to stay fit and really, really perform. But I only think it's healthy for both Thomas Frank and Richarlison himself. Provides Dominic Solanke with some serious competition, which we never really felt like he's had since he joined last summer, which is another positive thing. But what I really, really like about Richarlison is, as I mentioned a minute ago, he'll just leave absolutely everything out there. and he's really good at winning his duels. And I think ultimately with him, if you put the ball in the right area for him, I actually back him to score more often than not. And he offers something that Dominic Solanke doesn't necessarily do. And while Dominic Solanke's really, really good at pressing and running and still, and maybe a bit better at holding up the ball, I just feel like Richarlison's got more of that natural striker's instinct in him, and you know that he's going to throw himself over the top of a defender if it means him getting ahead on the end of a cross or something like that. And you can see from the very first minute of every game how desperate he is to score and contribute and have a positive impact on the team. And like I said, if he can stay fit, there's no reason why he can't nail down that starting striker spot for the entire season. But again, if he stays fit is always the big question. Is it going to be a hamstring injury? Is it going to be a quad? Is it going to be something completely new? Is what we don't know. And to be fair, I don't think he was necessarily brought back in the right way last season, and the style of football, maybe under Ange, I don't want to criticise him too much, is a contributor in why he wasn't able to get a consistent time in the squad last season. But so far so good. And yeah, we all know how desperate he is to play at the World Cup for Brazil next season. He's probably on like the cusp of having that spot for them. But if he carries on the way he does, it's going to benefit obviously his national team and more importantly us. It's just, yeah, we have to wait and see. I'm still not convinced, but he's gone a long way in the last 2 weeks to getting me on side to wanting to keep, because I've been in the boat for like the last 6 months now of wanting to sell him just because of that injury. It's nothing against him as a player. It's just because I don't think he is worth having in the squad with how inconsistent he is in terms of injury issues. But yeah, he's proven me wrong at the moment, and I have no issue with that whatsoever. But we'll see.
I think as well it's because he's had a proper pre-season, Billy. I know we mentioned it, how well he played against PSG last week, and obviously how great he was last week. But I think for him, he's very much a confidence player, but also he needs that kind of run of playing time to obviously fit in that kind of mould of being able to do what he can do the best.
Yeah, 100%. I think he said himself this is the first time he's had a proper preseason at Tottenham, because he's always had lots of different fitness issues throughout his time here, and I think there was obviously a bit of, you never know how much is paper, how much is true, how much is speculation, especially at the moment with Tottenham. We seem to be the club and every journalist's mouth for clicks and all that kind of stuff. There was obviously rumours that he was offered to Crystal Palace in the week, but that seems to be squashed pretty much immediately. I was worried that might affect his confidence after his amazing start, and then suddenly get told you want to go to Palace or whatever, but didn't seem to affect him at all. So yeah, he's a real confidence player, and I think now I think we badly need it, because we've lost Son, our sort of franchise player. We lost Kane a couple of years ago. We don't really have anyone to step into the limelight, but he could be the guy. He might see this as a real opportunity now. We forget he's an absolutely mega star in Brazil. Like he's got all the ingredients to be a proper superstar for a footballer. Brilliant personality, plays with personality on and off the pitch. So yeah, I'm really, really happy for him. I didn't see it coming, to be honest with you. I would have said in summer probably should be sold. I'm very happy to be wrong on that, but I thought he had another excellent game. So what a brilliant start to the season. That's 3 games in a row where he's been excellent, including the PSG game.
And I think as well, obviously, we've spoken highly about the work rate and highly about the press, but it fully came into, fruition. I can't even say that word properly, but it probably came into it, obviously, when we got that second goal, Jim, because 45+2, we saw our new signing Palinha hit the back of the net, and I'm so happy for him. But again, it came from that press, straight from the off.
Yeah, it did. It's that Mourinho said once that football is all about essentially taking advantage of your opposition's mistakes. And if you don't make any mistakes the opposition does, you will win games. And the whole concept of all these modern managers, Pep kind of made it mainstream in the Premier League to the point where you've got teams coming up from the Championship and saying, like, I need to bolster my CV as a manager to show that I understand that, by playing front foot football, even if it gets my side relegated, to show that I get this. That to be an elite coach, you've got to force other teams into mistakes to win games. And Frank was doing that. It was really all about, like, how can we just make City give the ball away? And in the same way that you think back with like Spurs and how we were like last season's a great like learning experience for us in that sense that every time we lost the ball, you felt we were going to concede. And I feel it's the same for when we're playing anyone in the league, whenever. Like if you win the ball in the final third, you know you're going to get a chance shortly after. If you lose the ball in the final third, you know you're going to concede a shot shortly after. So can you create more of those opportunities than you lose them? And Frank sure as hell made out we created a lot more of those than we lost them. And it's no surprise to me that Palinha got himself in one of those positions because he's one of the focal points of that press and making sure that we create those mistakes. And I feel like we went to that game like really over fixating on the 10. Like, yes, Tottenham need a 10. Tottenham get a 10. It elevates the squad, it elevates the side, it takes it to another level. But you can still pass the ball forward without a 10. You can still press without a 10. You can still have brilliant players without a 10. You can still defend without a 10. Do all these things without a 10. And we just made sure we focused on those strengths. We didn't worry about, carefully managing the ball between our own lines, carefully holding possession and looking to unpick the lock. We just said, all right, City, have the ball, and we will win it back off you in a place that you really want to keep it. And we took advantage for them having Trafford in goal, who is a keeper that's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, going to be Man City's keeper at his age. And in a position where I think it's going to be really kick City in the teeth when they've gone out and signed, the PSG keeper Donnarumma just at the first sign of trouble. It's like, what does that say to a player you're meant to be nurturing and bringing through at a young age? What a confidence kick in the teeth. If you were that player, you'd be going, you're at work, your first few weeks on the job, you mess up a couple of reports and they're already talking about a replacement and bringing one in. What a kick in your confidence. Like, well, come on, where's the focus? And we took advantage of that they didn't have their first choice backline. They didn't have their first choice goalkeeper. They didn't have their first choice midfield. So we said, we know you're uncomfortable playing together and we're going to make it way more uncomfortable than you'd like it. And we did. And we put ourselves in a position where anyone can score from certain roles because you get any Premier League. If you put a Premier League goalkeeper on a five-a-side pitch with us, he would skin all of us. Like he or she would just absolutely rinse all of us like we were potatoes. And so you put a Premier League footballer in a position where you press an opposition into having a one-on-one shot opportunity from 15 yards, they're probably going to score it. And that's the mentality we had. And we absolutely took advantage of it. So it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And it's great how obviously you said about Trafford because Mitch, again, like Jim's kind of said, we did fully take advantage of the fact that he was in between the sticks. And more so as well, because obviously there was that bit of controversy where he absolutely kebabbed Kudus as well and could have potentially been off the pitch.
Yeah, very lucky boy. I mean, I guess it maybe evened itself out with Van der Ven at the other end, potentially giving away a penalty. Regardless, Trafford, I'm not surprised that there are those links between City and Donnarumma, to be honest, because I know like Trafford and his name has been floating around for a couple of years now in terms of like, people have labelled him the next England number one goalkeeper and the heir to Pickford and that guy who's really going to be like a standout keeper in the Premier League. And I was actually a little bit surprised when City picked him up, to be honest. It maybe felt like a bit more of an opportunity signing for them. But I think he performed in a way that I expected someone like Ederson to for City as well, which, he's had his moments over the last few years where the City keepers seem to think they've got more time on the ball than they actually do have, and they just seem to have this necessity to, like that, the pass that he made for our second goal, where Sarr pressed, I can't remember who it was, the City player, but I think it might have been Gonzalez, but it just, there was no, when you see the back angle behind the goal of it, there's no world in which he should be making that pass in the first place because of how high the Spurs players are. I mean, it's a testament to Spurs and Thomas Frank and the man-to-man marking that we had for that entire game, to be fair. But that's one of the things where I think Frank sort of outcoached Guardiola a bit there, is that the players on the pitch knew when to go long and when to play short. And we wouldn't have seen that last season under Ange. We would have always played out from the back. But it is I think it's been a very key reason so far that has stopped us conceding as many goals, is we've stopped inviting pressure on to ourselves at the back. And I think that's a problem that City might face a lot this season, something we because we've exposed it so early on in the season. I think other teams are now going to exploit that as well, because I think it's the youngest Manchester City side that Pep Guardiola has coached since he's been there. He's got a lot of new faces in there, a lot of players that are still a little bit raw, Trafford being one of them. But credit to Tottenham, we exposed that weakness, I guess you can call it, really, really well. And we did it all game as well. City never looked comfortable at the back, which was a big thing that I picked out from watching the game in real time as well. They never looked comfortable. And yeah, I'm hoping we see a lot more of that this season, to be fair, just pressing and being aggressive with it. And I think we'll score a fair few goals from forcing errors from our opponents.
That's the thing. I know you mentioned it earlier as well, Billy, in terms of that second half was just such a controlled performance. Obviously, to me, I don't remember too much of the second half, purely because not that there wasn't a lot going on. There just wasn't a lot to kind of focus on because we were doing our job. City really didn't have a look in. What did you kind of make of how we kind of tinkered with things in that second half to stay so dominant?
Yeah, it was a really good performance. I think they obviously brought Doku on, who's obviously an interesting winger. I think he's difficult to play against, but if I was a Man City fan, I'd get really frustrated watching him. I think he's one of those players where you sort of don't want to play against him, but then actually when you think about it, he doesn't actually do that a lot with the ball. But I thought what was really good was that Kudus and Porro were doubling up against him. Kudus was exceptional work rate throughout the game. I think it was only until he got taken off and whenever it was quite late that, he was literally tracking back all game. And I know, funny enough, you speak to West Ham fans in the summer, they said, we're happy to lose him because he's got no work rate and all this. It's been proved to be absolute nonsense. In only 3 games, I thought he was exceptionally well defensively as well, which you didn't really expect when you were signing Kudus. And Spence on the other wing, same again. Just Oscar Bob, a really, really good winger as well, just completely locked him up again. And I think because we shot Man City and Pep are all about wingers, and they're all about winger wide players that beat the man, and then crossing it for Haaland and stuff like that. They didn't have it. I can't remember Haaland doing anything in the second half, to be honest with you. I can't really remember Vicario making a save either. It was just, I was really surprised at how much we dominated the second half. And then when Odegaard came on and Solanke came on, we actually should have scored. I think there were 2 chances, one that Odegaard missed and one that Solanke missed, and then another that Odegaard missed as well. And I think there was even one that Johnson took a shot when he probably should have squared it. We actually had a much better chance in the second half than Man City did, which is outstanding. I think it was actually a bit of a shame to not win 3-0 that game because we absolutely dominated that second half. We were outstanding, I thought. And I was expecting, like I said at the beginning, I was expecting an onslaught from Man City, but it never really came. It just didn't come. But I think that's more of a testament to our tactics rather than them being poor. Because, when they're bringing on Foden and Doku as substitutes and Rodri, the Ballon d'Or winner, it's terrifying, isn't it? But never materialised. And I think that's, speaks to how much Thomas Frank tactically outfought Pep in this game. And I think there was an interview with Aki after who came on as a sub. He said it was a really, really difficult match for us because they just pressed us all over the pitch. It was an outstanding tactical performance.
And it's impressive how well drilled we are, Jim, and just in that kind of short period of time with Frank coming in. And I know Ange had the kind of foundations there, like you mentioned earlier, with the kind of attacking play we do, because there still is those kind of reminiscences of Ange there, but it's just that structure that we have with Frank that kind of elevates us to that next kind of level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like the expression that there's multiple truths in life. You don't have to take like one view and then nothing else be correct. And I feel like with the old Ange era thing, it was like, oh, we have absolutely no structure. This A-licensed coach who's been in football his whole life can't see that Pedro Porro is stranded at his back coach, but I can. But I can show him. I know that. And any coach we bring in would know that. Like, I don't think we were like tactically inept. But I think that there's definitely been a level up still in coaching since Frank came. I think there's 2 realities to this. You look at the set pieces, you look at the defensive structures, but I also think it's like incomparable squads. When you were watching, and by November, like in the first season under Ange, we were 5th, right? That squad was way weaker than what we got now. It had no Kane. It was far weaker than we have now. We still came 5th. But last season, it was just such a car crash in the league that you can understand all the frustrations and finger pointing is just naturally going to bubble to the surface as a result of that. But by November last season, which is only 6 weeks away, we had Dragusin and Davies as the starting centre-backs. In 4 weeks from then, we were going to go with Gray and Davies as our starting centre-backs. Now, if Frank had to walk out against Man City with Gray and Davies as a centre-back, I wouldn't say Frank's a bad coach if we lost that game. I would say we've utterly let him down, putting him into a match with Gray and Davies as centre-backs, because they wouldn't even be in the bottom 3 of the Premier League as starting centre-backs. And I say that as someone who thinks Ben Davies is a good player, who's a versatile fullback, who's not a centre-back. And Frank has instantly gone, he's not a centre-back. Everyone knows Gray isn't a centre-back. He's a midfielder. To put any manager in that situation, you set them up to fail. But I feel like what Frank's done is taken a platform which was in a bit of a disarray, and the best thing Frank's done, I think, that goes underrated. People go, structure. I'm like, the hardest thing he's done is he's come into a squad who are utterly, for whatever reason you want to believe, they utterly loved Ange Postecoglou and backed his methodology, and he's convinced them to buy into his. And he's convinced them that he is the guy who can take them forward. He's convinced Romero to sign a new contract, and he's convinced him to get behind all of his beliefs. And what you can see on the pitch straight away, though, I think set pieces in particular have elevated to another level. And even watching Vicario, I think like he just looks more comfortable. I thought he had a good game against City. He had one bad pass that could have resulted in a goal. But overall, I feel like those kind of players have gotten a new level of confidence in Frank. Now, I would caveat that a little bit with having a proper number 6 really, really, really helps. And when we played Burnley, we were caught out 3 or 4 times that I thought if that was Man City, they wouldn't have messed up that final pass. And that game would have been quite tight. But what Frank has done is he's reunified the squad, who are a bit bereft with the changes. He's added even more structure to it, and he's kept the best of the attacking football and added defensive solidity to it as well, and taken the best of every world possible so far in these first 2 games to prove that he's a really good coach. Now, I just hope, because as Frank said himself, we will lose games. We will absolutely lose games, and we will go through purple patches. Remember, he's a good coach for these moments. Remember what he's all about. Remember how good he is, and stick with this guy, because a good squad underpins success for any manager. And if we give him a good squad, fine, it's on him if he fails. But he needs to have this platform. And I think with the platform he's got now of everyone being fit except for Maddison, he's doing brilliantly with it. And the structures are there. And yeah, he's doing great. And my son just walked in the room, so I'll hand over to Mitch.
Yeah, I think Jim's hit it on the head there. I think we are under no illusion. What Ange did was brilliant, but what Frank is kind of doing is kind of taking us to that next kind of level. I mean, obviously, the question for me to ask is, are you happy with Frank at the moment? The answer will be yes, but how do you kind of obviously see us going through? And we'll probably touch on transfers now because it will naturally happen.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, Holly. I really, really try and go into every single season with a positive mindset, feeling really, really optimistic about our chances. But I'm just really struggling at the moment with getting over this hurdle of how much of a mess the transfer window has been. And it's the same story recycled year and year and year again. And this has arguably been the worst one yet, just because of the near misses, half-bothered bids, everything else in between. It's just, you're never going to get a positive reaction when you dangle all of these good players in front of Tottenham fans and then you don't get any of them, right? Like the Gibbs White one hurt, right? But if we'd have signed Eze, I think most people probably would have been able to get over it, right? And then when you watch Eze, worst case scenario, agree a deal with Palace and then he goes to Arsenal, that's really painful as well. And then at this point, you've got money to spend. You need players. And then Thomas Frank comes out and he does a press conference and he says, look, if players don't want to play for Tottenham, I don't want them here. And then we go in and put a bid for Nico Paz from Como, who had literally just said, after scoring and assisting for them in Serie A, that he doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay at Como this season. And that neither Como or Real Madrid have any interest in negotiating a deal for him to leave to come to Tottenham. It's all just so confusing and so typical, I think, of Daniel Levy and how Spurs operate in the transfer market. Ultimately, if we don't bring in the players that we need by the end of the transfer window, regardless as to how well Thomas Frank starts the season, he has been set up to fail, in my opinion. And it's been the case with the last few managers, or however many managers, if you want to go back that far, ever since Poch was given that window of not signing anyone at all. So, there's a very clearly a good coach currently in charge of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Like, Thomas Frank has already proved in the few weeks that he's been here that he's versatile, he's brave, he's able to compete against the big boys with what he's got. But like I've already mentioned, with the games piling up and the schedule getting more busy, and inevitably we will pick up injuries, because we always do every single season, and we already have injuries. Like, that should be the number one priority. Like, that's the big alarm bell, the fact that we've already got significant injuries in the squad. I just feel like if we were to close the transfer window now and the squad we have is what we have, it can't possibly end in a positive way. And if we were somehow able to, with the squad we've got, compete for those top 5 places for a spot in the Champions League next season, then Frank has probably worked the biggest miracle that I've seen any Tottenham manager do. Maybe apart from Ange winning a trophy with the club. But yeah, it's just, there's time left still. So I'm not boiling over to the point where I'm absolutely furious, because at the end of the day, big deals don't necessarily always get done very, very quickly, especially not in Tottenham's case. And while there's clearly been a briefing that we are interested in other players, and there are bids going in here, there and everywhere, like, if we do bring in Savinho and a number 10, it's still on paper a pretty good window, even after missing out on Gibbs White and Eze. The issue is if we don't, and that is when things really, really start to... I mean, they should be anyway, because the season started 2 weeks ago, right? Like, we've already had 2 games of the Premier League season, and if we'd have lost opening day to Burnley and lost on Saturday, I think the mood in the fan base would be very, very different. So I think Daniel Levy has Thomas Frank to thank for that so far. But I want him to succeed. I want him to do really, really well. Obviously, I want Tottenham to do well. But we've been fed false promises and lies again. All of this investment talk, all of this cash injection, and we're still not really seeing the benefits of it. And I'm refusing to budge on my mindset around that sort of Tottenham board and hierarchy until something significant changes, to be honest with you.
I think that's the most annoying thing, because obviously getting the Palinha in, getting Kudus done, gave me that bit of hope. And then obviously, like Mitch has mentioned, Billy, obviously Morgan Gibbs White situation, the Eze situation, like, it's just very frustrating. And like we say, we've got Savinho hopefully on the horizon, hopefully we get someone else in. But how are you kind of feeling about it all?
I'm definitely worried. I'm really worried, to tell you the truth, because we're running out of time every day. There's only 6 days left after today. You imagine not much is going to happen today now. So we're at the 8 o'clock as we record this, and that'll be 6 days left of the window. We seem to be getting not necessarily rejected, but sort of pushed down left, right, and centre. Obviously, there's Paz, as Mitch mentioned. There's Henicape today, although I'm not entirely sure how much we were even interested in that, but. The main concern for me is the time that we've wasted. Like, I can take being rejected by players. I can take our position in the food chain below Arsenal, whatever it is, just the way it is. I can accept that. But the amount of time that we've wasted on these players now is, we're coming to the end of the window, and we still don't have 2 positions, which we knew on day one of the transfer window that we were going to be needed. And that's including that before the fact that Maddison even got injured. So it's the time that we're wasting that I'm worried. And if you look at the number 10 market, in particular, there's not like a wealth of players there. There's only a few names left on the list, the reported list anyway, and it's ever dwindling. So, and the trouble is, the longer you wait it, the other teams are going to say, "Well, we can't get a replacement in now, so we're not going to sign anyone." And then I'm really worried that if we get to the end of the window and don't sign anyone, we'd be selling short a manager who has proven in 3 games that he deserves a squad to be able to compete. And my real main concern with it all is, I think we're a couple of players away from giving Thomas Frank a really good chance of doing something really special this season again. I think he's proven that in 3 games. He's completely transformed the vibe around the place. He's nailed down Romero, which was a big task. He's had 3 tactically brilliant performances. The vibe of the place is like almost going back to the Pochettino era, that kind of vibe. It would just be, and as I saw someone tweet, Thomas Frank's done his job so far. The players have done their job so far. Now it's time for Daniel Levy to do the same.
Preach. I think that's the thing. Jim, for you, obviously, the whole Eze thing, I can't be asked to talk about it anymore. I can't be asked to talk about Morgan Gibbs White anymore. It's looking ahead, because like both the boys have said, we need potentially that winger to come in. We need that number 10, even if it's just to fill that void for Maddison, like we spoke earlier. That midfield three that we played against City was excellent, but sometimes we need something different, and we need a player in that position.
Yeah, like I look at it as three different things. I think of it as where we really are, where we want to be, and where we really are and where we want to be are two different things. So two things. And there is a third, and where people think we are. And I think where people think we are is worse than we are. I think at the start of the season, I was saying from the start that Udogie, Spence, Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, Bentancur, even Danso, loads of Palhina, they're all Champions League level players. And I feel like we went into the season being like, because we came 17th last year, even though a weaker squad came 5th the year before, we're now a mid-table side and we've got one transfer window to get back into the top 6, otherwise we'll get left behind. And we're looking at Newcastle and Villa scrambling around, and Forest scrambling around trying to sort their squads out with all of their own issues, be it issues with their chairman, issues with the manager, issues with the squad, whatever it is. And I think they're all one injury away from a disaster in different positions. So I feel like Spurs are, and this, I go from where we think we are to where we are. Where we think we are is like mid-table. Where we really are is 5th or 6th. And where we should be is in the top 4, competing for side trophies and building a squad over a long-term plan that gets to the top 2 and starts challenging for league titles again. And so there's 3 different facets there. I think what's frustrating is, even though it's a good thing that we're nowhere near as bad as people think we are, we have it within our grasp and our power to be where people think we should be. And that is, and I don't think any fans, I know we look at, change groups, all those kind of things, and we say like, it's unrealistic to challenge Liverpool and City. I think even like everyone in those groups, they know that. They know that's not like a 1-year thing to challenge them. But what they're asking for is to say, this season, let's address 2 or 3 major issues and get back into contention, so we have a squad that's capable of layering up and getting back into that conversation over the next couple of years. We want to just see that situation where when you're 3rd in January, you don't know it's all going to come crumbling down after a game against Chelsea because you lose 2 players to injury. We want to know we've got a squad that can handle that and continue to go through that tough patch and take advantage of the teams that can't. And the other thing is, I think we're stuck between, again, but in the transfer market, we've been stuck between who we are and who we want to be and who we think we are, because we went out this window. We went way too hard on youth last window, and we went, right, this time we're going to go out there and sign some big players. And we went for Eze, and we realised, actually, to win a player like that, you have to pay way over odds, because when you're competing for a player with other clubs bigger than you have to pay them more money or convince them of a project that's more exciting, or both, to have a chance of winning them. And we went in and we went, we'll offer you the same as Arsenal. And it was like, you're never going to win that competition. You're just not going to win it because they want to play for us. And then same with Henicape. What that feels like to me is, I know Paul O'Keefe's got loads of stick over this, but I've been on a couple of shows with him, and Billy, I know you probably have too, of the guy, of Paul. He's genuine. Like, this guy, he's not a fraud, this guy. He knows his stuff, and he's already said we were interested in the player. And I do believe him that we've probably, my guess is, we've gone, we want you to the player, and we've pursued them for a while, and they've gone, Spurs, no, not interested in you. And we've gone, that's really awkward now, because we've kind of like already set the motion out that we are interested in you and we're willing to pay it. And other clubs have gone, well, we are too. The only positive is we've gone, let's just get out of this quickly, hit the eject button, send out the messages to the media to say we were never interested, and just go find someone else. But I also feel there's another side to it where I think people want to see is, tell Henicape, just go, yeah, but you'll earn 50 grand more here with us. We'll pay over. We know we're not in a bargaining position here, so we'll take the risk and pay a bit more. And that's where we often find it, like, it's good that we're sensible in so many ways, but it's also our detriment in other ways as well. And it's like, if you want to bridge the gap between City and Liverpool, you've got to be really bold. You've got to take really calculated risks and go for it. And I feel like when we go for these players of like, okay, now we're fishing in the sea of like senior, ready now, inverted commas, it's a harder pool to fish in because you're up against Liverpool, City, PSG, who are bigger clubs. And the only way you can win it is by saying to a player, you will start for us every week. You will earn more money every week. And if you join here, here's a project. I'm going to show you it now. That's going to blow your mind. And I just feel we go kind of like, rather than doing that, we go, whatever Liverpool offer, City, PSG, Arsenal, whatever, we'll match it. And they go, well, I've already got those offers from them as well. So I'm not going to go to you. So on one hand, it's like, great, we are offering the same as them. But the other time, we're wasting loads of time because they're not realistic. Unless you've got to fully commit or go for something different. And I feel we wasted a lot of time not fully committing to some players. But I still have faith we'll get a couple of players in. But I think we won't know whether they were the right players or not for another 6 months. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are with it.
I hope they're listening because I think that's probably the best way you put it, Jim. And for a lot of listeners as well, I think that's kind of hit the nail on the head. We're kind of going for these players, but we're not really offering anything else when they've already made their mind up to go somewhere else. But obviously, before we wrap up, I do want to quickly talk about Bournemouth because obviously that is our next game coming up. So Mitch, I'm going to come to you first. How do you see this one going down? Obviously, it's back at home. It's at Tottenham Hotspur. So how are you feeling for it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting test. Because it's probably the first team we're going to play this season where it's going to be a bit of a hybrid. So they'll probably sit deep at points, but they're not going to be completely sat behind the ball for the entire game. They're a brave team under Iraola. Bournemouth, they have some very, very dangerous players. Savinho obviously being the main one, Justin Cliver as well. I know their defence is probably a lot weaker this season than it was last year with losing Zaviani, Huijsen and Kirkez. Obviously, 3 very, very good players. So I feel like there's a real opportunity for us here at home to go into the international break, 9 points out of 9, really, really good goal difference and just with a wave of momentum. It's almost a bit annoying that if we do win against Bournemouth that it's going to get halted while players go away and play for their countries. But yeah, it'd be a really, really positive start. And I do think, having watched, obviously, the Liverpool game last weekend against Bournemouth, they showed that on the transition, on the counter-attack, they are incredibly dangerous. So that's a big thing we're going to have to be aware of. But I think that's where someone like Palhina will come in and be a huge asset against a team like Bournemouth, breaking up those counter-attacks. And then, on the other hand, I don't think they looked great against Wolves at the weekend, a Wolves team who largely played with 10 men for the majority of the game. So, yeah, I think they're not as dangerous. I might regret saying this. They're not as dangerous as they were last season from what I've watched so far this year. Having said that, like, you know how the Premier League works these days. Anyone can beat anyone. And I'm scarred from how bad our home record was still last season. So, you know, I think the recipe to having a good team and a very early indication of how good your season's going to go is how strong your home form is. And I want to get back to that expectation and feeling that we should be winning the majority of our home games, which I'm hoping is the case, obviously, as a Spurs fan. But it'll still be a tough match. It'll be a tougher test than Bournemouth, and a different team to play against, I guess, than City, in terms of how we'll set up and shape-wise. So it'll be an intriguing watch, but I feel positive about it overall.
I think I'm the same. And obviously, Billy, I'm not going to ask you to kind of predict how we're going to line up because we had this joke last week that we have no idea. But what do you kind of hope to see? Is it kind of the same of what Mitch has said? They're going to be more counter-attacking Bournemouth, but hopefully with Palinha in there and maybe that midfield 3 we'll see again, we should be all right.
I think it's going to be a really interesting tactical battle, to be honest, because we're up against another one of the sort of, quite a like-for-like Thomas Frank, and that he could, just as easily change formation as Thomas Frank could play very direct like Thomas Frank. I think it's going to be quite a difficult game, to be completely honest with you. And I think if we win, it'll be a massive win because I thought they looked excellent against Liverpool. And bear in mind, they've lost 3 of their 4, or even 4 of their 5, their back 5 this summer. They looked really good. They looked really good at the weekend as well. Semenyo's on fire. We've got Evan Nilsson up front, who's decent. I don't think it's going to be an easy game at all. We played them twice last season, and they battered us both times in terms of the play. Anyway, they're a really difficult side, I think. So I'm expecting Thomas Frank to come up with something a bit different. I think it'll be It wouldn't surprise me if we see Palhinha maybe drop out and Val start maybe, a bit like he did against Burnley. I think we'll have a lot more of the ball than we did against Man City in this game. But I think it's going to be a really interesting tactical battle from two really modern coaches that kind of, it's going to be almost like a chess match, I think. It'll be a much different game than we've seen in the last two Premier League games. But if we do win, which I think we will, that's a brilliant start going into the international break. But I certainly don't think it's a game that I'm going to look at and think, oh, that's an easy win. I think it's going to be a real tactical battle for us.
Definitely. I mean, Jim, are you kind of on the same sort of vibe, as in it's going to be a tactical one to kind of look out for the neutral? But for those that are watching it and that are fans, it might be a bit not awkward to watch, but it might be a slight hard one.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think like we're beating Man City, and now you look at the fixture list and you go like, is there anyone we can't beat? And you get to that dangerous level of confidence where you suddenly have a realization that, oh, wait a second, we were playing Premier League teams who are really bloody good. And as soon as you're linked to their star player, you get very excited by them. And they're better than I think Burnley are, that by quite a distance that we faced at the start of the season. Like, it's one of those games that we should win in a normal season, but you expect in a season where Spurs are, a top 6 side, that they win 7 out of 10 of their home games. And I feel like this season, where this is one of those games we should win. But for me, I'm trying to think more kind of like, what I want to see more than anything is the consistency on building on the performances. If we were not to beat them, but we still saw those defensive struggles. Let's just say we start Berry, Val and Gray, because there's a bigger picture here that we have to keep giving those players minutes if we ever want them to be good enough to start for Spurs. And we've got to juggle the fact Palinha is going to go next season. And we've got to somehow prepare for that. And because of that, one of those young players makes a mistake that leads it to being a draw instead of a win. I'm not going to be fuming. I'm not going to blame Frank. I'm going to go, he's made the right call and he's made a tough call and it hasn't worked out. But so I'm more looking at kind of like the performance of the team and looking at individual level. But I think we should win that. And I imagine it's going to be closer than people think. And like when we played Burnley, I think there was, in a normal world, play that 10 times, you concede 1 goal in quite a few of those times. But you win it also most of those times as well. And I think I still think we'll win, but it'll be by a single goal. And it'll be a bit like whoa, okay, we just smashed Man City. I thought we were going to win that 5-0. Well, if you look at most Premier League weekends, look at most of them on the fixture list, vast majority of games are defined by 1 goal. The vast majority of games are not defined by more than 2 goals. But the best teams have that bit of magic, a bit of spark just to limp through at the last hour. And I think we will. And I think we'll be okay. And I think there'll be moments where you go, damn, that's where you really need a 10, isn't it? That number 10 would have unpicked that lock there. And we'll have those kind of moments, but we'll still scrape through and be okay. And look, it would be the first win before international break since 2023. So that would be lovely.
That would be nice. And I've been starting a new thing on the show, and we'll do it quickly. I just want to get your match scoreline prediction. So, Mitch, come to you first. What do you predict the score to be?
I'm going to go for a fairly tightly contested 2-1 win to Tottenham.
Nice. Billy?
I'm going to go another Thomas Frank clean sheet. I'm going to go 1-0 Tottenham.
Very nice. And Jim?
Yeah, I'll go 1-0 Spurs.
Nice, lovely stuff. Well, hopefully it is a win that we can hopefully talk about next week on Hollie's Hotspurs Live. But it's been amazing to have all 3 of you on tonight. We've actually had a full house, which has been a long time in a while. So I'm very happy that you guys joined me for that one. So we'll go around the table, say our goodbyes, and where we can find us all. So Billy, thank you again for coming on the channel. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
No, my absolute pleasure. I always love this show, and great to be on with 2 great guys as well. Just Billie T on Twitter, and big week coming up, right, guys? I'm looking forward to all the content over the transfer window at the end. Let's fingers crossed for a few big signings. I'm strapped in now, ready to go. A week left. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's hope for some good news rather than some more rejections, please.
100%. I echo that. And Jim as well, thank you again for coming on. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
So on all the major platforms, audio and video, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube and all that stuff. But my personal Twitter is Jim Spurs, which is the name on your screen there. And just a shout out to say, always good to be on with Billy. We always seem to get on together, Billy, and we never seem to be on the same, I must really want to get you on to OSO Spurs, and I don't know why I never keep organising it. And also Mitch, because I think we all support on here Last Word on Spurs as well in different capacities, and but we it's nice to finally meet you as well. So thanks for having me on, Hollie. Your show is awesome, and what I'd say to anyone watching, please subscribe, because the YouTube algorithm is not kind unless you've got stupid amounts of subscribers. But there's like some absolute gems like this show that should be 10 times what they are in terms of that subscriber list. So make sure you subscribe to the brilliant Hollie's Hotspurs.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. And Mitch as well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Yeah, my pleasure, Hollie. I know you keep trying to flag me down. I keep telling you I'm not available sometimes on Monday evening. So it's been nice to actually finally nail down a date. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Billy, obviously, been on with plenty of times before. And Jim, lovely to meet you as well, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. But yeah, Twitter, main platform, really. YouTube as well. I'm doing quite a lot over there at the moment as well. Just Mitch_Fretton. I've got a video coming out tomorrow on a load of transfer stuff, which will be interesting. I'm actually hoping something massively changes overnight so the video can go in the bin and I can record something new. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, like everyone's already said, big week coming up. Chance to go into international break undefeated, and the chance, however slim that chance may be, to end the transfer window well, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks once again, Hollie. It's been great to be back on.
No, thank you. And cheers to everybody that's obviously tuned in tonight, that's been watching live, that's going to go rewatch this. I do really appreciate it all. And I guess until next time, it leaves us to say, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.